There's that. So, hello everybody and welcome to our weekly Aquatics Talk Q&A show. This is our weekly conversation about all things aquatics. We meet every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. The goal of the conversation is to share ideas about the aquatics industry and to
That's me.
help others access across the industry. I'm just kind of proud to say I'm kind of expanding some additional programs under this umbrella. So we launched our new interview show that will come out each Monday. I'd encourage you to sign up for an email. So it's over at aquaticstalk.com. The people that have been on the panel are signed up before. There's the Zoom email that goes out. In the next couple of weeks, that'll go away, and that info will go transferred over into a different email that'll come from me directly, and I'll have links to all the stuff. So there you can also learn more about what we do, and you can join the panel by joining that Zoom webinar and then just asking to be a panelist, and we'll bump you up to a panelist and you can chime in on what the questions of the day. Another great way to contribute is submit questions into our Q&A. So with that said, I'm going to jump into the first question. And the first question was from Will, and he asks, do you have an employee position that has the position of aquatic safety coordinator or something similar? If so, what does that person do? Does anybody have experience with that one?
No.
Nope. Coming up blank on that one there. Oh, I'll just say I think it's a great idea. I think I've heard of a couple universities having different positions like that, but they usually reach across the entire athletic department. So just a thought about that one.
Yeah, for us, it was a matter of if it was a safety committee that he's talking about. Like for the park district, we would have a representative from every department on the safety committee. And then they would bring those issues to the forefront to the district and be able to partake in that budgetary process for those funds to get safety. So I'm thinking right off the bat, it was a way we purchased our pool vacuums.
Yeah.
Based on if it was a safer thing and would it ever happen and that kind of stuff. That's all that I've been, but it was a position someone took it on top of what they already do.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, since we didn't get a lot of bites on that one, I'm going to move over to the next question here. And we've talked about this one regularly, but we've got some new people on the panel, so we'll answer it again. So Stacy asks about any thoughts on the best aquatics conference in 2023 for managers or directors. And I'll advocate for the Association of Aquatics Professionals Conference. I think it's a really great one. Does anyone else have any ones that they want to chime in on?
I agree with Joe. I like the Association of Aquatics Professionals. That's a good one.
Great. All right. With that, I'm going to jump on to the next one. This one's a little more straightforward, and we'll talk about this one. Jackie asks, does anybody have a rental agreement with an outside swim team for using your pool for year-round practice? They conduct private swim lessons in addition to that. So that opened a kind of a spin-off can of worms for people. The idea of this other entity doing private lessons in your pool. And a lot of people are not happy about that. So anybody want to chime in on that one?
I have a swim team, I have a master's team, and a synchronized swimming team. They all use our pool for practices, but they may bring a one person that's on their team early to work extra with them, but we don't allow them to actually run swim lessons or give private swim instruction in our pool. It's a conflict, and I think we've discussed this before. The insurance, So.
Right. Yep. I'm doing a deep dive right now on swim team pricing right now, so that's where any of these contracts and rentals I'm diving into, because we have a swim team that rents a lot of pool space from us, and just making sure that we're in line. With COVID, a lot of things went on the back burner, and we had to reset, looking at those fees and comparing it to our actual cost structure of what happens there. So,
And I'm wondering too, if, I think there'd be a difference if they were, like you said, offering the private lessons for their team members but it gets dicey if they're charging money for that from parents, because then there's different expectations. And ultimately it all falls down on you in terms of reputation or how it goes. Obviously the insurance question, but also just reputation wise, what people are seeing. And I'm just trying to think of ways that I could go back to the swim team and say, no, this really doesn't work for us. And part of that would be that real estate is, it's not easy in a pool trying to get the programs that you want to offer in. Swim team usually sucks the life out of the time in a pool for a great amount of time. And so you have to run programs concurrently with it. And that's okay. But I think that's, giving them some ideas of how you go back and say, no, this doesn't work for us. And it's competitive in nature with your own programs if they're not in the same philosophy. They're making money on your facility, and I think it gets really confusing for the patron out there, and if you're in a public situation, then you have taxpayers who are paying.
right.
And if a private entity is in making money on this, you better be able to show on the other side how your facility is benefiting from it.
Right. And I think that's where, like, the fees and rates that we generally have for the public aren't reflective of somebody being a profit making entity off of that. It's like, I've heard people argue that, like, well, commercial trucks make money off of public infrastructure all the time, but oftentimes they pay a lot more to do that. They have to pay, additional fees and charges to be able to use those for more than just personal use. So I used to be a little more of a proponent of, like, it doesn't matter as long as they're paying for pool space, but as we've moved more and more, I'm seeing the difficulties you set yourself up for.
Well, and the other part of that is I'd be I'd be wanting to look at it to see why is it they want to offer private lessons? What are you not offering that they're trying to offer? Is that
Right.
situation? Do that.
Right. Anyone else? All right. I'll go ahead, Chelsea.
I was going to say, at my last facility, we did offer something that somebody brought in and I'm not going to say a whole lot about that, but they offered something that we did not offer at our facility. And the decision for it was taken out of my hands. My CEO made that decision. We allowed that to come in. But what you need to research, and especially for YMCAs, is YMCAs are kind of particular about what they allow at their facility. So if there's a conflict of interest where it says, like, you shall not teach this style of something, or this should, like, they have very clear guidelines and their aquatics guidelines about what you're allowed to bring into your facility. And if what someone's wanting to bring into your facility doesn't line up with what your previous guidelines are, you also need to know that.
Right. Great. No, great question, or great response on that. All right. Going to jump over to the next one. Sarah asked if anyone has an unaccompanied child policy that parents sign for youth patrons. They'd like to implement a system so parents are aware of behavior. That sounds like something that happened at, like, as part of a membership agreement for a pass, I would think, especially on like a YMCA type of facility. I know general drop-in facilities, it's a lot harder to do that. Thoughts?
Go ahead, Christine, go ahead.
Christine first.
Again?
Yeah. So the question was, if anyone has an unaccompanied child policy that parents have to sign for youth patrons. So basically, like, for like teenage students and children that are coming in, they're old enough to really be unaccompanied, but they want to make sure that there's communication to the parents about what is, what's going on and what the expectations are and how bad behavior will be handled.
I've never dealt with that. We just
Yeah.
treated them as the other customer.
Well, yeah, to some extent, they're another customer. So my last facility, and I'm still learning this new one. My last facility, you could buy a teen membership at 12 years old and up. And so that meant that those kids could be in the facility unaccompanied, that they had already signed, the parent had already signed a waiver for them. Because under 18, the parent needs to sign the waiver for that. And then in my pool area, I had a rule that between the ages of 8 and 11, if they've passed a swim test, you can allow your child to swim without you. You don't have to be on the pool deck, but you have to be in the facility because your kid still doesn't have, a day pass or anything like that. So it was weird. It was a really weird line we were drawing because kids could come in at 10 on a day pass and just go play in the gym. But we had to draw a little bit more of a firm line with the pool. And that's what my CO allowed me to finally pull that line. Like she kind of controlled a little bit more of those lines. Probably not my favorite. I probably would have gone a little bit older, but that we just kind of went with what the team membership already was. But your waiver should cover that. And then within that, if you've got any issues, that's a phone call to the parents. Like, hey, your kids are here at the front desk. They're not listening. We've had to discipline them. We've had to, pull them out of the facility. And we've done that more than once.
Yeah. I know of facilities that were trying to implement something like that where everybody coming through the door had to sign a waiver, and then it's quite the administrative lift. I can see some value, but I also worry about the barrier it potentially could put up. If this 12 or 13-year-old that doesn't necessarily have a great steady home life, or have an adult that will be willing to come to the pool and sign something for them, are we excluding the kids? I don't know. I go back and forth on it. I think it's going to just depend on your community and the infrastructure you have. I think my workaround to address it for the kids, the unaccompanied kids, to be able to come in by themselves, they'd almost get like you'd run them through your pass system as a must pay pass, though, like where you have all their information in your registration system, but it's not like they have a pass. They just have to scan it and then they can come in. They have to pay each time. And that was kind of the workaround I was thinking. So at least you get them once a year, to get them to get, some sort of adult sign off if we had to implement it. But I went on to a different agency before we rolled that out. So
I think, there's also, it's important that everybody has an understanding of what those sign-offs mean. Because, when you take information, I can put it in the sense of like a waiver for a water exercise class. Okay. When you do those kind of waivers, there's an assumption that you're hanging on to that information and that it's easily accessible to everyone. Right. And that isn't always true. That isn't always possible. And so, it's what the customer's assumption is by you having that information. And when you start talking about kids, if I'm a parent and signing a waiver over, am I assuming that this means you're going to take care of my kid while they're there? I'm under the assumption of that. I think that's where you have to be very careful about the language you use, and you have to be careful about what the assumptions are with a waiver. What is it for, and how are you going to access it, and all of those things, and have understanding on both sides of the fence.
Right.
Because obviously I was in a water park situation, so we didn't have that going on. It was more watching the age coming in by themselves. But I think that that's something that's, when you're doing a waiver type system or sign off system, you have to look at the whole thing 360 as
Agreed.
to what it.
Absolutely agree. And I think it's here. This one's for me. How long do you keep restringing your lane lines? Like not the length, but for how long do you keep doing this? At what point do you just replace the whole thing? I saw somebody posted the picture on the Aquatics group about they poked themselves in the finger restringing lane lines. So from the expertise on the panel, how long do you go? Because I am probably the worst person about this.
I've honestly never had to restring the lane lines at any of the facilities I've worked at. But I've also been very fortunate in that all of them were always in decent condition. And the most recent one we had, they were planning on restringing them at the last facility, but they realized that for $500 a piece, I think they could order 3 brand new lane lines completely ready to go. And they were like, you know what? Swim team's paying for it. We're done. And so they just bought brand new lane lines and they were beautiful. They just clipped right in and we were good to go.
Great. Other thoughts? Because I'll be honest, I'm probably the worst about this. I will just keep. We can just get a. We've got a big reel of stainless steel cable from Granger in the back room. We'll just pull that out and restring it every time it breaks.
Yeah, I don't do that very often.
Yeah. So.
But I'm also not mechanically inclined. So I use my strengths elsewhere.
Yeah. I think that's where I get myself into trouble too much because like, oh, it's not that big of a deal to fix this. It's easy. It's quick. And then you end up like, you know, stepping over $1 to save a penny.
Yeah.
Great phrase.
And that's something I know I've been guilty of. So, all right, we're going to jump a little different direction here with this next one. And there was a longer discussion about this and a lot of great comments. So I just wanted to pass this out to this group of, Justine asked about guard shift length and questions if it was wrong to adjust shift times and overlaps to accommodate her guards' schedules. So she talked about how she's short on staff and had, you know, her start times for her shifts were hard for kids, says kids, for high school students and college students to make it on time to those shifts. So she adjusted the shift times and was asking, was that wrong?
No.
No.
Not at all. No, you do what you got to do. But we personally have like a 15-minute overlap in shift schedules as well to try and accommodate. So like somebody starts at 12 and that shift before them doesn't end until 12:15. So you've got that overlap for, you know, crossover of conversation, making sure that all the duties are getting done, etc. Now, some kids initially were taking that as, oh, the next guard doesn't leave until 12:15. I can show up at 12:15, and we had to talk them through that. But 100%, I've adjusted shifts all over the place. I had a guard at the last facility that couldn't get out of wrestling practice until 5, and so we started him at 5:30 to accommodate. And so I covered a half hour in that pool until he got there.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you got to do.
Yep.
It's not wrong.
I totally agree. And I think if it's about getting somebody to take the shift or cover the shift, like is it too early? Is it too late? I can't fill the shift. Then you can always look at the people that are in it now and say, what will make it better? Who do you have that you know? Where can I hire? So to your point of overlap, also to the point of is it hard to even get somebody to come in from 1 to 4 in the afternoon, right? Or to open? Well, what are you making that shift? Are there other things in the organization? Are there other components to the job that they could be doing to make it more meaningful? Because there's a lot of layers of that question of, was it wrong? No, I agree with you. It's not wrong at all. It's what is the what is it sustainable, number one, and why am I doing it? Is it for the employees? Anyway, but yeah. It's definitely not wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sure her concern is more that she doesn't want to constantly be rearranging the shifts. And I get that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll just say that, like, I know when I'm building schedules out based off the availability that staff give me, you know, I start with what I think the shifts could be and I fill it as best I can. And then it's like, well, ideally this one would start at 3, but this person can't get here until 4. So I'm going to kick them out till 4 and see if the person that, you know, can this person stay longer or whatever. So I think that's a normal thing.
And I think from the employee side of it, because I hear it all the time, is that, well, I had to drop this shift because I've told them 10 times that I have school till 3:30 and I cannot get there till then. And they keep scheduling me. And instead of coming in and saying, "Hey, we've had this conversation," the kid quits. You know what I
Right,
mean?
Mhm.
right. Because
So
there
it's
are
like,
times you can't change the schedule. There are times this is just what it is, and that's a great point too. And they have to know that that's the case in those situations. But you don't force it into them, right? You don't keep setting them up to fail.
right.
Right.
And
Any
well,
other
I add
thoughts?
one more curveball to this piece is if we have a robust program, that employee may also do swim lessons or may also do other things. So if they get clients or if they are doing up, so again, because they're not just always lifeguards. So hey, I picked up a swim lesson. Hey, I did this. Again, not that we want them taking control of things, but there's all those other anomalies beyond just that time block that they are assigned to before and after. And I've fallen in that trap many a times where I want the revenue, and then the lifeguard is supposed to be at 3, but he picked up a 3 and 3:30 and 4 o'clock lesson. Awesome, but I just hosed myself because now I got a guard for an hour and a half. So there's a lot of dynamic there.
Yeah, and I try to have the approach of like, if there's specialty needs, I'm going to put the person who's the specialist there, and the more generalist, it's easier, you know, it's easier for me to fill a regular rotation spot for a lifeguard than it is for somebody to teach a water babies class. On out of a staff. So that's where the prioritization goes, versus water fitness, or you know and I don't mean to dismiss or put down any positions. It's just there's a specialty set of skills that takes a bit to get to, and it just takes time. And that's not means that none of those people couldn't do it. They just don't have the interest, or they haven't learned it yet.
So if you could put the guard that knows how to do that as the guard in case the instructor at that time block, in case, dude, that's how you earn the shift. I mean, I can go an hour on that whole thing. You want that shift and learn how to teach the class, and I'll give you the shift so you can back it up. Anyway.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate, where the facility I'm at, the programming side is pretty tightly integrated with like the maintenance and operations side. And that's my background is both. And so like I'm looking for maintenance staff that also, not universally, but where I can, if they're a lifeguard and swim instructor also, the expectation is like, hey, we've got a hole, and clean that chlorine feeder can wait a couple hours. Get your suit on and get in. We'll pay you for whatever the higher rate you have is, but
that's the best ploy ever. It's the best trick ever.
Yeah, but it just we build in contingencies. We build in the ability to make decisions on the fly. So, any other thoughts on that one? All right. I got a good laugh out of this one. This was from Sarah asking about responding to a child vomit and have diarrhea in the pool at the same time. What would you have done? And some of the suggestions and jokes I thought were pretty good. I think my favorite one was just fill the whole thing in with concrete.
Resign?
So,
Was that on the list? Walk?
resign. Yeah, just walk out the door. That was one. But how do you respond when you have multiple things like that?
To what your health department says, because for us with diarrhea, I mean, you have to close for 24 hours with that. Can't get it out of the pool without shutting it down and vacuuming it and putting in the other vacuum, and just, it's different policies. You got to look at what your health department says.
Know the plan, apply the plan. Right? To your point, what if it's the health department, if it's facilities, if it's internal, what is my closure plan, and how am I able to apply it? And you all might laugh at this; those that me might not. But I have run emergency diarrhea drills, just like we run heart attack drills. I've don't run them and dumped it in whatever, and just to see what they do. And it's really interesting to see how quickly people panic or not for a non-life-threatening emergency, right? No one's dying, but people just get flustered. So anyway, know the plan, apply the plan. Yeah.
So my quick question is, what did you use to simulate that?
We ground up, you know how you have like Hershey's cocoa, right? That you put in your milkshake, right? So you just take that up and you put it in a bag with a baby Ruth. You just break it up and like a Ziploc bag with a baby Ruth and cocoa and dump it in your pool, but it becomes all crumbled. My maintenance guy wanted to run it through the pipe. Like we literally spent an hour debating if we were going to run it through the pipe. Cocoa powder, the Hershey's, and a baby Ruth in a bag, and you just dump it in the back end of the pool. I've never run it through the pipe, but yeah, and it takes a couple minutes for them to all look at it and sit there, and all of us, yeah.
Ground
Super
up
fun.
brownies work really well too. Take
Yeah,
a
well,
brownie, ground it up.
they sink. The problem with the brownie, in my experience, is that they're too heavy. They sink.
True.
So it just looks like a solid poop. I wanted full diarrhea. That's why I did the cocoa powder. Yeah, not to discredit the brownie, but it was too dense.
I think running through those scenarios is excellent though, because you can talk about it in 3 sentences, or you can actually practice it. And that way everybody, when it happens, because they're already, what are we going to do with the public? All of this kind of stuff. And if they've got that practiced and in their head, everybody's on point.
And it
And it is
became
important. And it is safety.
Yeah,
You know,
because
it is a
it could
safety
go in
issue.
the water and it could get in the pipes, and it really became very simple, not to go too deep, but it became I need somebody getting people out of the water. I need somebody measuring the chemicals, and I need somebody not letting anybody in the water. It
Wow.
became 3 very simple steps at that large scale. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
And
And
your thoughts?
I kind of felt when I read this question, because I saw that, is it, you know, sincerely, it maybe someone new that had no idea. And so, you know, the
Mhm.
idea of the CDC regulations and stuff, they maybe just really didn't know. Maybe they've not been
Mhm.
through those kind of drills, you know, they're new at this job, and not knowing that you have to shut down and how you deal with that, you know, and there's the public side of it too, of controlling that information. Um, so
Yeah. I try not to snark too much on the group when people ask questions, and just try to give the facts. I think I snarked a little bit on one that we've got coming up pretty quick, but the yeah, you treat it like the worst of the highest escalation, which would be the diarrhea incident. That's the worst, and then the rest is actually falls under that. So
yeah.
you know, I get the vision in my head of you. I don't know if you guys knew Steve Cable, but I get the vision in my head of Steve one time came out and he had a fishing pole, waders on, and a net, you know, and it was all that. This is, you know, it's putting on the show.
Yes, yeah, the cocoa powder.
Putting on
That's
the
why I went
show.
to the powder, because
Yeah.
it dilutes the water, it changes the color.
great. All right, I'm going to read the next question here. Let's go. Come on. There it goes. Adam asks about how to get staff on task when they are not on stand. He says they're having a huge negative swing in productivity over the last few summers.
I will send him a link to the electric cattle prod that I invested in. It's big, it's shocking, but it really does work.
Yeah. Okay, so cattle prods. What else?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good.
I was just going to say, what kind of supervision is there on staff at the time? So, you know, what are they being left alone? You know, checklists, and accountability for that, initialing things.
Omnipresence, to that same point, if there's not the physical manpower of woman power on deck, what kind of implementation have you put when you're not there? What omnipresence have you created? Not necessarily in a threatening way, it could be a positive way, but what impact do you have when you're not there is, I think, a big misnomer or a challenge. Because when the cat's away, the mice will play.
Yeah, everything you guys just said. I created daily checklists. So they handed me initially a cleaning list that was like, this is our giant cleaning list that we have to do. And everybody was under the impression they had to do it every shift. And here at my
That's a
new
lot.
facility, again, they've got a big cleaning list. And I'm like, we can simplify this, because he's like, my aquatics director here is kind of frustrated. He's like, man, like they don't always get it done. And it's hard to make sure everybody's getting it done and that it's not all on one person. I said that was my concern too. If you assign it to the shift, hey, there's 2 tasks that you need to make sure are happening during your shift. And that way it's broken up between all of them.
Hmm.
Things are getting done every day. It's not the end of the world. And so that was one of the big things that we implemented. And then me personally, even just I'm 2 weeks into this job, and I just said to the lifeguard out there, okay, I'll just be right inside the office. You grab me if you need me, like bathroom break or anything. And she's like, really? I'm like, yes. I'll pop through every so often and check on you guys. But if you need me, grab me, like 100%. Like it's not the end of the world, but they feel it's that accountability, that they feel that somebody's kind of always there, but it's also that they feel like they're being taken care of, that they're not just there and abandoned.
Mhm.
So there's a balance to both, I think.
Good point.
Yeah.
I've done the same thing that Chelsea did. Is we have a daily, so every day is something different. There's big tasks and then there's little tasks that need to be done. Walking through, checking up on them. We do have lifeguard twos that are supposed to be in charge. Sometimes we have a problem where they like to boss the younger kids around, but we check on them, letting them know we're there. We check the checklist. Um, Last summer, I did have an incident where one of the male lifeguards told the female lifeguards it's a woman's job to do the laundry. So from there out, it became all the men have to do the laundry. So it was only the boys. Boys had to do the laundry every day. So that fell back on them. We hold them accountable.
Well
Mhm.
put. I too am big on daily checklists. Just in my too many years of experience in this, one thing I always advise people to do, not that anybody's asked for it, is put trick questions in the checklist. Wish Jennifer a happy birthday, even though it's not Jennifer. Put things in the checklist that so they don't just do it. They just don't be put random. Who won the Super Bowl last year? I had true story. I had somebody wish Jennifer happy birthday for 6 weeks in a row. Checklist. No one ever. They just monotonously did the same thing. There's robotically, and your checklist is getting completed. Yay! No.
Yeah.
So my just word to the wise: insert funny, nuance, random stuff that makes them actually pay attention to the meaningful content in the wording. Sorry, I digress.
Yeah, I think it's good.
5 work days. She got wished happy birthday in a row. True story.
One thing that I'll add too is, we had a pretty monstrous checklist, but our structure was that, we would have 2 additional bodies that weren't in rotation at any given time. It's a fairly large facility, so you would be up for, 30 to 45 minutes at a time during just a normal day because there's 3 stands, and then you'd be down for 15. But then there'd be a head lifeguard who was out of rotation, and then you have your down position. And what we've been into lately is we're struggling to staff to keep all of those features open. So in order for people to be able to be down and, we're having head lifeguards in rotation, we just don't have as many people to knock through the list. So we've had to do an adjustment and a kind of a reassessment. And maybe that's something that's, that person that posed the question may not quite be aware of because the staff on the ground may be getting, in that boat. Because I had a discussion with somebody within our organization that is like, well, why didn't the lifeguard clean that air grate? It's because the lifeguard was going back and forth from this to this to this. And,
Assess. So take
Yeah.
a day, take a half a day, assess the checklist. Anyway, I won't tell you. I did a whole presentation on this, but yeah, yeah.
I mean,
What are we doing? Who should be doing it? Why are they doing it? 10 because that's when the lifeguard can get here before a shift. Well, anybody can vacuum. The front desk can vacuum, right?
Mhm.
You know, so we spent like 2 weeks teaching somebody else to vacuum, and now they vacuum at a different time. And starting January 1, they're going to have a water aerobics class at 9 because the guard can actually get there. But instead of vacuuming, he'll be guarding the pool. So to your point, Joe, it's just a matter of like at times it's just, well, this task has to get done. But anyway, I digress. But like,
Yeah. Next question. Dylan put a post, a kind of a longer one, about the great resignation and looking for people that have left aquatics during this time period, kind of and why and what was going on and where they went to. I'd just like to pose out to this group. Do you have any thoughts about this? You know, is this a trend in aquatics? Is this something that you know people that have left the field because of, you know, as part of this great resignation, and thoughts?
or go ahead, please. Yes.
Well, I was just going to say, I worked with a colleague that, I've worked with for years, and, he decided he went a completely different direction. He just completely left. And it was very much like there was other institutional factors, but like gave a 2 weeks notice without with kind of another thing in the can, but just said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is too much. And I think it was a setup of way too high of expectations with not enough resources, and unreasonable, some reasonable wants and some unreasonable wants that, their administrators didn't weren't able to provide or were asking for. And I think, talking to some people, I've seen that through this pandemic, we've seen a lot of people taking stock of their lives and realizing, yeah, people know people affected by, um, life's short.
Yeah.
Wesley, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a very slow paced, yes, kind of in the same breath, I think, where you were going, where I've the nationally, I'll say, the people that I've known that are either no longer in aquatics or in just part of aquatics, have had that fork in the road where the organization they were in has changed, and to a
Mhm.
point where the conversations and hopes and things they thought may have come, aquatic wise, future wise, specifically surrounding the pool and the aquatic industry, haven't been able to become fruition because the organization, the company, the building, the partnership, etc., isn't capable of what it was before. Doesn't have the resources, all the things you were hitting on, and so the individual in the industry has been forced choice. That's what my yes was going to be: is that people that maybe didn't want to leave see that there's life to live, see that there's outside world, see that I don't have to be teaching every day, etc., and have been gone because the company also saw the same thing and they weren't going to give them what they needed. Equally, I will say this truth as well. There's a lot of people I've seen that have stepped up and that have leaned into higher positions that they're not ready for, that have become aquatic people that didn't know they were going to become aquatic people. So I think there is another wave of newbies and forced into aquatics that's going to meet it ahead in the next 18 months. That they've been doubled and tripled on assignments from aquatics to fitness to childcare, or have said, I'm more than a head guard, I'm more than an instructor, I'm more than an LGI, and I want responsibility. And in my opinion, in the next year, year and a half, those two groups are going to meet, and we've got to be ready for it. That's my thought.
Great.
But I've seen it in the camp industry, related to aquatics as well in some ways. But you guys think the pandemic shut down a lot of facilities, and a lot of facilities didn't recover, especially summer camp facilities. So we saw a lot of small camps in the industry shut down. I know YMCA's. We actually looked at a job out in Southern California, and there's it's Golden State YMCA. They're gone, 100% shut down because they didn't make it through the pandemic. So there's a lot of facilities that just shut down and people had to exit because there were no jobs out there for them. I think that's a factor too.
3 of the 16, well, there were 16 metro suburb Chicago wise, and now there's 13. from 2019 to 2022 or 20 anyway. So that was 15% of the entire metro and suburb. So to your point, it's not just the pool shut down, the whole entity, lifetime, not lifetime, but the partnership. Anyway, yeah.
All right.
Thought.
Yep, you did.
I'll come back later.
You want to any other thoughts on
I'll go at the end. We'll go at the
any other thoughts on the Great Resignation? All right, it ties into this next one actually quite nicely. This next one, Steve has asked, has anybody noticed a trend in aquatics towards hiring non-aquatics trained people for full-time aquatics positions? If you have, what was the rationale you found?
I know it was several years ago, but it had to do with a change in administration above me, and insisting on a degree over anything else. And in aquatics, I'm not aware of many aquatic degrees, aquatic recreation degrees. We tried one here at the U of O, and it didn't pan out. But what happened is, luckily, I had another switch in administration, and someone came in, and I was able to let them know that for what was far more important for those supervisors that were going to be on the deck was to have that background of aquatic knowledge. I didn't care if they had a master's degree, and that's what they were asking for, and I said, that isn't going to save somebody's life. I need somebody that's, knows this in and out. And how can we choose somebody just for the degree over somebody that has a life master's degree in aquatics? That's how I looked at it. Right. And luckily this person was strong enough to make that happen. I'd love to have.
You're very fortunate, I think, Christine. It's I mean, I can probably name 10 properties in off the top of my head that in the last 6 to 9 months hired somebody who was a lifeguard or taught some lessons at some point in their life, but had spent their career in recreation, fitness, MBA, accounting, banking, finance, management, anything else, because they have a job, they have a degree, they have background, they have management experience, and that's what the higher ups want now. If you don't know what you need, you don't hire for what you need. So from park districts to YMCA's, it is a trend that I have seen at an uncomfortable rate, where I have a very basic background in aquatics or some story to tell about it, but my general experience is in somebody that's running a pool that used to run a Petco, like a pet, right? But they but to the person who asked that question is a very valid point, and it's a trend in my experience.
Well, and there's talented people out there that can step into that for sure and can learn it. But I mean, there's also it's
the
a learning
challenge.
curve,
right? There's no foundation for these people to be brought in. They're smart people. I would hire them tomorrow, but to do this targeted, specific type of work, they just don't have the understanding of it. Yeah.
Other thoughts? So I've gone on a journey on this one, and I would say, like all good answers, it depends. So my current situation, the organization I work for, which is a pretty large facility, single site facility with a lot of features and a lot of programming, we're currently operating with a supervisor that doesn't have an aquatics background, but she's been one of the best supervisors I've ever had. Well, because it's the leadership, and it's trusting that, having a structure of people underneath you that are the technical experts, and not feeling like you have to know the answers. You can problem solve the answers. And so I think it depends. And I think I started a long rant on this. I saw that post and I was like, I get it. And then I was like, as somebody who's gotten beaten out for aquatics directors jobs by people that weren't in that boat, um, I've kind of gone past that and like, what's the best fit for this job? And so just started a long rant about, it's like, I think we need to kind of get off our high horse a little. And it comes across not that well to people that are out like, those pool people just don't want pool people. No, I think it depends. And you have to really dial in on what's that position. So if you have somebody that's training lifeguards and managing that, they need to have some experience in that, or they have to have like 5 lifeguard instructors that are working with them that are completely auditing and they're listening to them and learning that content. And they have to be a heck of a person manager, and they have to have a heck of a lot of humility to be able to be like, yeah, I don't know, but let's find out. So I think there's a lot more room for that, and I think we need to adjust our expectations with that a little bit.
I would
just a little.
gladly hire somebody that's not aquatics if I have the infrastructure to help them along. But you're absolutely right. We've got isn't it wanting to quit a year later because we didn't set them up for success. I think that's the biggest gap is we don't have in the industry, we don't have the open path for a non-aquatic person to come in and be successful at the management level. At least on a large scale.
Agree 100% with everything. We do have a girl here who is interested in taking on more. She's been at this facility for about 3.5 years. She's probably the one who's the most concerned about me coming in to this new position, thinking that she was going to move up. Mm-hmm. She's 18. She's bipolar. She's got a lot of issues going on. But she's also like, I've already got my LGI, I've already got this, and I want to do this. And she's very gung ho. And so on the opposite side of that coin, you can have someone who is totally like certified in a crap ton of stuff, but not mentally ready for that responsibility, not like honestly, truly ready to manage people because they're just not that kind of personality. So all of that stuff, I highly recommended to her. I said, hey, just look at what other aquatics director positions are looking for. A lot of them in corporate America will require a degree, but I'm a classic example of I have a 2-year degree that's just a basic associate's in like nothing, but I've been a lifeguard since 1999. So like if somebody took a chance on me and was like, hey, you know what, you are old enough and you have some responsibility, you can do some leadership, and yeah, let's make it happen. And I've since gone, I've been an LGI for a long time, and we've gotten more certifications to back up what I'm doing. And I've grown into this position, but people don't always find it as organically.
Well played.
Yeah. And I think it depends on what you're trying to get to, and, that self-reflection. Cause like I think about my career path, when I was getting certs and stuff, I wasn't ready for this specific, a bunch of different jobs at different points. But then I found ones that were better fits. Mm-hmm. And that, at that time, that was a good fit, going to the next thing and the next thing. And, sometimes it's like you have to grow and change into the positions you want. What got you to where you're at might not necessarily be what's going to get you to the next thing. And so I really, yeah, it's an interesting process. Any other thoughts on that one?
Well said.
Thank you. All right. This one I thought was interesting. That color combination didn't work. A group member asks, what's the average time someone spends at a pool as an aquatics director?
Are they talking about like on the deck or?
No, like in their career.
Oh, see, I read it on deck, like a daily, but anyway.
I think it depends on what you're contracted for, honestly.
Yeah.
I was contracted for.
Well, I think
I think if
that's Stephanie.
they're looking at like how many years you're going to stay at the facility, you know, rule of thumb I've always lived by was it takes at least 5 years to get things done that you have planned. You know, you walk into a facility and there's changes that need to be made and you know things that need to happen, and it takes a good at least 5 years to get those changes into place. Um, you know, my last facility I was at for 15 years with a 5 year plan. So I think it
Yeah.
also depends on the fit.
And that's ironic. So I started in 95 and I probably had the opposite effect where almost a decade where I was not anywhere longer than 2 years. Didn't get fired, but achieved my goals, hit my marks, wanted to climb the corporate ladder, wanted to be a GM, wanted to run the largest water park, blah, 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 blah. And so I got in, got what I wanted to do, got my teams, turned it around and went on. Not saying that it's right or wrong. It's just a very different strategy because I wanted to do different things and achieve different things, not higher or better. But I also know people that have been as successful, if not more successful, doing that path, Stephanie, where I'm going to sit in and I'm going to be here and make it mine for as long as I can. So it's funny that there's an opposite.
Yeah, I started in 78 and
Well
was there
done.
12 years and then went into private business for 10 years and then went back into aquatic direct, went and took lifeguarding at age 48, kill me. And was there for 20 years.
Just
And
talking
then,
about it.
so, you know, and then when I went to Tamarack, it was a matter of coming in for someone that was ill. And I had to do an aquatic director's job in 20 hours. That was really a 40-hour job. Well, I had those skills to do that.
Right.
Didn't have to learn as
Right.
much as operate. But I think that's, you know, it depends on, this is the deal when you're doing a career path is that you want to make sure, because I've seen people stuck also. I think you're in as long as you're staying stimulated and it's fun and you're enjoying what you're doing and you're moving in progressive and you're positive. And then when you feel like you've given it all you can, then that's time to challenge yourself sometimes and choose a different kind of um, um, facility to work at or kind of facility, those kinds of things, you know, those things come up. And I think it's always good for someone to look at those opportunities that are coming up, you know, and not be scared of it because we can get really settled. And especially when you work for the public, in the public realm, can get pretty cushy, you know, in a sense, because there's stability, right? But, you know, I left my position in 89 to start a business and, you know, jumped out of the plane. So, you know, I think that's where it's really how you're feeling and how you're producing and if you're enjoying it and if you're growing. And when you hit the wall, then move on. Be okay with it.
Yeah. So you bring up a great point about getting stuck in aquatics. I always used to run this joke. It's not a glass ceiling, it's a water ceiling. Like the top of the, you know, you got to get above the water to get out, to get to a real job, right? To get to the industry. And so we just get comfortable underwater. We just, right. Cause it's our program. Nobody else can do it. Nobody's going to come in here and do what I do. And I don't blame it. Believe me, I've been there. It's like, I'll sit this out for another year. I got childcare. I got right. And that's okay. But I think to the point of it is, are you okay with it? Like, it's okay to do it, but are you okay with it? Whoever you are, anyway. So.
Great.
Average turnover within the YMCA seems to be like 3 to 5 years for director level positions like that, at least what I'm seeing. And then I feel like somewhere in there's also a what looks good on your resume. How long are you sticking around to a place? Because there's some red flags there if you're switching positions too soon.
Oh yeah, it's not fun to answer that in interviews, by the way. I can tell you flat out. I wouldn't have said that either way, just so you know. I was not going to leave that hanging. I can flat out tell you. Well, it looks here, and actually the job, I had stayed at a job for 7 years but why are you bouncing around? I said, well, would you like to see what I did? No, we just want to know why you left. And it's a not fun question to answer anyway. But yeah, so there's two sides to that story.
No, I agree with that. And I think the idea of engagement and, you know, trying to figure out, I've talked to a few colleagues and like, well, you should think of hedges, like, you know, like hedge your bets a little bit, maybe find some things that are within your scope of your job or, you know, close enough to be able to grow and expand on, you know. I'll be honest, this project right now is part of my like hedge. It's taking what I know and being
Daughter's
able
better.
to grow and develop skills. So to be able to do, you know, other things. And I don't know I'm going to do anything else with it other than just what we're doing right now and interviewing people and having fun. But I think it's important to just continue to grow and find ways to do that. And, you know, however you pencil that out, I don't think matters. It's going to be different for each person.
I'm
So.
doing this Zoom from my daughter's bedroom in my in-laws' house to that point. So to start my own business, right? So
Right.
and by the way, Joe, you're doing great with the Zoom talks and this stuff. We're all very proud of you, and it's awesome. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. So, all right, we're coming up to the top of the hour. So I've got one final question, and this is a fun one. What stories has this group experienced with the public thinking you live at the pool? I'm playing off the meme that Chloe shared the other day where, you know, realize I live at the pool and visit home. Has anybody had that experience of when you see somebody out in the public, they're like, wait, you're not at the, like they do that double take of like, I know you, but I don't know, like,
The
you look
question
different with
usually
clothes
is
on.
yes.
Yeah, you look different
Yeah.
with clothes. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
didn't recognize you with your clothes on.
right? That's the best one. But
The kid, the grandparent, like you get different responses by base who says it to you. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. That's the
Walking my dog, and this lady was there, and she came up to me and she said, she said, "Did you used to work here?" And I went, "Yeah, a really long time ago." And she said, I said, did you work here? Because, you know, I've had so many staff. My God, I can't remember them all. But
Mhm.
and she said, "Oh, no, no, but I took swimming lessons when I was little." And I went, "Okay, great. Well, good for you." You know, that's fun. But it's fun. It's heartwarming because
Yes.
you know, that's what I always told my instructors. You do not understand what an impression you are making on that child. They will remember you forever.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's true. You're very important in their lives, and you help them with a skill that lasts them lifelong. So
It's
They all go
always
to the
funny to
same.
me.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
It's always funny to me how many parallels you can make. Summer camp is a lot of my background as well. And when you run into kids that you've spent a week with at summer camp being like, "Hey, I'm Sticks. How you doing? We're running around like crazy." You know, and then they see you in Walmart and they're like, "Wait, you're Sticks, aren't you?" You know, I'm like,
Mhm.
and my husband, they call him Smokey. So like, they're Smokey, you're here. What? You know, like the kids get really excited. They're like, because it's somebody that they've put like up on a pedestal in some ways, you know. They saw you, that same thing with the impressions, you know. Oh my gosh, this person who I knew at camp, I'm seeing him in the real world. Because you know, these
Right.
places that you interact with these kids, it's life in a fishbowl. It's a little bubble,
Oh.
you know.
Mhm.
And we were always described as you know, it is life in a fishbowl. It's a wonderful description because kids are watching you all the time. They
Mhm.
want to be like you. I know I wanted to be like the people that I saw at camp. It's the reason I'm a lifeguard. Okay, Jerry was
Yeah.
the nicest lifeguard ever, called me Sunshine. "Hey Sunshine, how are you doing today?" And Jerry's amazing. And I was like, I want to be like Jerry. He's so nice, he's so cool, he's one of the nicest lifeguards. Like, I could do what he does. And I do, in part
There it
because
is.
Jerry was just a genuinely nice person.
I love it
Nice.
when the kids figure out that they know they're all at a birthday party, and so, oh, I swim with Meredith. Oh, I swim with Meredith. Oh, you swim, and then all the parents realize it. So that's always entertaining. And then real quick, so I ran a water park that was outside of a baseball stadium in Central Illinois, and I would also umpire. So I would be behind the plate in my umpire gear. I would take my mask off and talk to the players and the parents. And they're like, wait, aren't you at the, did you, yep. And then I put the mask back on. And then the next day they'd see me in a chair running the, anyways, this is all really closely physically related. So I could do it all. But the shock that they would see you like doing anything else, let
Yeah.
alone at Walmart, because that happened too. But like, wait, and
Right.
you're, anyway, so always fun to trick them.
Yep. No, it's great. And it's the stuff like that that makes it fun. So
Yeah.